Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Mexico City, the show of fatherhood, eating with your family, films, and mezcal. Today's guest is the amazing Fausto Zapata, the CEO and founder of El Silencio Mezcal, a great mezcal, very, very ubiquitous in Austin, Texas, and the great Brandon Turner coordinated this interview some time ago, but I've seen El Silencio just rocket up the charts. It is everywhere that you would see a mezcal, and this is great to see the success of this brand. I think this is a wonderful chat to put out. Today is National Mezcal Day. Now, tomorrow this chat will come out, but in the spirit of mezcal, let's talk more about it. Let's talk about one of the brands that a lot of people have great and varying opinions on. So, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this great chat with Fausto Zapata, the CEO and founder of El Silencio Mezcal.
I want to say as often as I can. When we first opened this market, I was coming here quite often. Then we had the incredible fortune of inviting Brandon Turner to the family. Yeah. So now he's obviously crushing it and spearheading all the efforts. So I come less now because he's leading the charge here. But I just love it. I used to live in Houston, actually.
Oh, you did? You really? Yeah. Where about in Houston?
The whole year. Gallery area.
Gallery. Yeah, man. I went to high school there.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
So I have this special place in my heart for Houston, especially because usually you move somewhere and you have expectations. And when I moved to Houston, I had zero expectations and not knowing, much about what would happen. And I just found, Texas in general, Houston in particular, Austin obviously is, I'm a huge fan of Austin. But it was incredible to just suddenly find this just wonderful lifestyle, Texas lifestyle, and just be so attached to it and drawn to it and find just the incredible people, and more than anything, the incredible love that Texans have towards Texas. Yeah. I always like saying that Texans have more love of Texas than most people in the world have for the place that they belong to. So it's contagious.
We're a bit masturbatory in that way.
It's crazy.
It's a culture on its own. Which is kind of interesting.
So I'm so excited about it, have the distribution here and having the Silencio growing so much because of obviously the market from the business perspective, but just my own love for Texas.
It draws you to it, doesn't it?
It's incredible.
Cruel mistress at times, Texas, right? Well, so from what I understand, you grew up in Mexico City, though.
Correct.
And you, like many of my other friends who grew up in Mexico City, drank tequila and Sprite as a means to an end. But as a child in Mexico City, what kinds of things were you interested in? Were you a science guy, a math guy?
I was very interested in great many things. Mexico City is a city that exposes you to so many things.
Yeah.
Ironically, I was never too drawn to a lot of things that a lot of people are drawn to. Like I mentioned that I'm a big soccer fan now, but that came later in life. I wasn't too much when I was growing up. I was very interested in sports. I was always very interested in outdoor stuff. I was always very interested in just the culinary world. I was just had this incredible connection with restaurants, with cooking, with food. And in my house, like everybody in Mexico City, there was, I grew up, there was always wine at the table. There was always beer on the table. There was always tequila on the table. So it was never something that I discovered later in life. It was always present.
Yeah. Which is interesting. When you tell your kids not to do something, then it becomes more special than if it was just on the table every time, right?
In my house, there's always mezcal on the table. Yeah. There's always wine on the table. It's present. I think it's a part of life. I mean, the beauty of the world that we live in is that it is a part of life.
Yeah.
It's not something that you eventually get to. Or that you're eventually exposed to. In my world, it's always been there. It's part of the celebration of life. just like food is.
Right.
So I was always very drawn to the celebration of food, the celebration of meals. I come from a big family.
Yeah. So were your folks in that same kind of industry? Were they?
No. My father was into politics. My mother's an artist.
Yeah. Oh, really? What kind of artist?
She's a sculptress.
Sculptor. Wow.
And my father was a politician. Passed away. That's why I say he was.
Yeah.
But there were always very gregarious people, and they were always very, just exquisite people in how they love having people over and just making sure that the
hospitality,
food is
right?
incredible.
Yeah.
So there was never not, 15, 20 people in my house.
Yeah.
And if you take all my siblings and step siblings and half siblings, and you take their friends and their girlfriends and their boyfriends, and everybody just came together. There was always so many people in my house. So Saturday was religiously a day that we actually had lunch at my father's house, and remember we used to get there at 11 and jump in the pool, and then lunch would be served at 3, and everybody would get up from the table at 8 o'clock at night and move to another table, and so there was always kind of that.
So it's part of your DNA.
It was always something that I was incredibly drawn to. I was always big into travel, so seeing food and beverage in other parts of the world just was always my first connection. My mother was an artist again. My father's a politician, so whenever we went somewhere, it was first and foremost I want to learn about the country, what's happening in this country.
Right. I
want to know about the art in this country. You got to go to the museums. And you have to go to the restaurants. That's what defines the place, and eat.
That's exactly the way. If I was going to ever write a book, it'd really just be 2 pages. Go to the museums, go to the bars, and go to the restaurants.
That's it. And talk to the people, and then become friends with the locals, and just become one.
You do it anyway. You have a sip at a bar, and you end up running into somebody, and you start talking about the world. And it's really always a way makes us feel connected. But just kind of briefly on this topic of embracing the world, embracing every opportunity that comes with food and things, with technology and everything taking us out of the moment and taking us out of that ability to connect with each other, do you find that now drinking mezcal with somebody, having a fine meal, is even more important than it's ever been?
It's great that you mentioned that, because I had a big conversation about that the other day, and I frequently mention it. People forget that the prime matter in this industry, it's not booze, it's people.
That's right.
It's an industry of people coming together. The reason booze was invented was to bring people together. We're big as a company into social media and technology, but personally I'm not, because I feel just a disconnect when I'm not looking at somebody in the eyes. So I am known, after having a relationship with somebody over email, I am known to just jump on a plane and go down there and sit down with lunch with them just because I have to, just because I just find it against everything that we are as human beings to start transferring communication to a device, as opposed to having that personal. So much about communication is facial expressions and looking in somebody's eyes and having that back and forth that you can't suddenly substitute that on an email.
Right. We try, though. We sure as hell try. But
what I love the most about the world that I'm in and the wonderful liquor industry that we live in is that connection. You're making friends. Yeah. You're making connections. And that is first and foremost something that should never be substituted, and in this industry will never be substituted by technology.
It's the one thing that remains analog.
Completely.
You think about it, right?
Completely.
When I think about a guy that, obviously you've got a beautiful blend. Your dad's a politician, your mom's a sculptress. And this then kind of makes you analytical and creative. Did they have expectations for you as to what you should do with your life? Did they want you to be an artist? Did they want you to be a politician?
Not really. I think my father had hopes. And I've always been very gregarious myself. But they've always been very much about believing in just kind of opening up the realms of possibility and going out there. I've had many hats throughout my life, and they've always been incredibly supportive in all of them, including the hat that I currently wear. Yeah. So there was always support. There were sometimes push me in one direction or another, but it was really very much they've always been very supportive. In every way, shape, or form.
The thought of being in, because we talk about people,
Mhm.
we talk about being imbibed, we talk about parties hosting all of this. Sounds like politics might not be a bad outlet for that. Did you consider getting into that?
I'm incredibly political. I am obsessively, compulsively political.
Really? What does that mean to you, political? 'Cause, people.
Opinionated.
There we go. Okay.
I have thoughts about a lot of things,
Yeah.
and I cannot help myself but
Yeah.
to be very involved and aware, and wanting always to be more involved.
Yeah.
So one part of me has always left that possibility open.
Right.
But another part of me, I'm not really a fan of just the strings that pull
Is it dog and pony
politics.
show? Is that what it is?
Just say that I think sometimes, unfortunately, getting into politics goes against the very principle of what politicians want or should do.
Immediately a conflict of interest, it feels like, doesn't it? It's
So I think there's a way to get involved in politics without necessarily being a politician.
yeah.
So
I like
maybe
that
these
because
things.
it's like, well, let's talk about community. I can do that with some mezcal,
Completely.
right? Because you think about these small palenques and these villages. That's
Well, my favorite. Somebody asked me yesterday what my favorite part of all this is, and my favorite part of this is seeing this company grow
Yeah.
and what it's done to our production family, because we've been able to bring so many people back to Mexico.
yeah.
One of my favorite moments, if not my favorite moment in all this, was when a gentleman just came back, and I was in the distillery, in the Palenque, and he just came forward and just asked me for permission to have a word, and I was thrown away. Why would you ask me for permission to have a word? And he was just very, very respectful, and he just really wanted to thank me. And his words were, I work for you. I work in Silencio, and up until a couple of weeks ago, I was in Fresno, working the fields. And Pedro, our master distiller, invited me to come back. He said, and thanks to you, I am now reunited with my family, my kids who I hadn't seen in years.
Wow.
And I am working in my town, doing what I've always done and what I love the most. He said, thank you so much. So we sustain, have been able to invite so many families to come to work for us.
Yeah.
And seeing that happen, and seeing our distillery grow from a little hole of dirt and to what it is now, and seeing all these people just being so benefited from everything that we've done is a way of doing politics.
Way
it's
of
a way
giving
of
back, a way of giving it back to the community. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when I think about the trajectory, because again, it's like you get this great kind of amalgam of talents, right, that come from your parents, and then you go into the finance industry, from what I understand, and you're working in Cancun, or at least in
That was later.
places
Yeah, I was in
right?
Wall Street first, and then I was in real
What
estate.
is money kind of the antithesis of people? I know that's not, I'm not trying to be too philosophical, but in a sense, right, it feels like it is.
Elaborate.
So people are about relationships, and it's not necessarily about the furthering of one's ego over another, right? But money, Wall Street specifically, and I'm not demonizing or vilifying it, it's just there's one purpose, regardless of the human element, and that is to make money. So I'll rephrase it, was there any kind of inner conflict, or did you still feel you could carve out your space of altruism in that?
I mean, I think we're all just as human beings on a journey. It's the example of the 14-year-old kid who says, I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Or a 16-year-old kid, or even a 25-year-old kid who wants to be a lawyer. You can't make, I think it's hard to make a life decision or when you haven't gone through life.
Fair, yeah.
My philosophy, is that I think you go on this incredible journey of life, and you're learning a lot about a lot of things, mostly yourself.
Yeah.
I was always very interested in creating. When I was working as intermediary, it was wonderful from the financial perspective, but I just felt the creative element or aspect was taken away.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever so much about money. I mean, money is important, and anybody who tells you it's
Otherwise,
not,
yeah. No, it is,
it's
absolutely.
is lying. You know, and but I always wanted to have, you know, to be able to make it while creating something, while, you know, being involved in something that I believe in and that I create, and it had this incredible trajectory that your heart is in as well.
Do you see the duality again? Where it's like your heart, at the core of it, is to do something creative, to create, to share things with the world, but at the same time to have a steady job that can keep you successful, right?
Well, I mean, that's I mean, if you're able to do that, I think that is the ultimate goal, right? That's the ultimate goal.
See, now this is good, because now I feel like we have more in common than I realized. You know, it's like people, again, they vilify money, but it is a means to an end, because only can you change the world if you have the resources to do so.
And it's also about survival. I mean, you're you know, there's money and there's money. I mean, the premise is that there needs to be you know, you need to have an income to create.
Right.
You know, to grow your own life.
Well, it feels like the LA chapter. Now, there's lots in between in terms of your career, entrepreneurialism, and humanitarianism, all of that. But LA, to me, seems like the definitive chapter for the mezcal itself. And I was reading, perhaps this moment for you, La Scorpion, is that the right spot?
La Scorpion, yeah.
Yeah. It was a place apparently that you had opened up in LA, right? Or
I was an investor. I was an investor in that, and but what's interesting about that project was that I almost, you know, fell into it. It wasn't anything that I planned, but it was, like I said, I've always had this incredible affinity and love for food and hospitality and beverage, and I found my calling there. When that project happened, I just realized how much I love this world.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the first time that it officially kind of triggered, that said, this is my world. This is where I belong.
Yeah. Which is funny, because again, it's like they surround us our whole lives.
Yeah.
And then someday we actually realize they've been with us the whole time.
Yeah. I always joke. I tell my mom sometimes, I'm like, Mom, I mean, when I was 16, I just loved hanging out at bars, and you know, had you just encouraged me to stay there, I would have, you know, saved so much time in between of doing other things.
I'd be working with Pedro in Guadalajara doing Nazante or whatever.
Well, I guess he had to go through that journey again. Yeah. You go through that journey to suddenly find something that, again, going back to how I was raised with all this love for food and beverage and hospitality, you suddenly go back to the circle of how it was always there. You just have to rediscover it. But you don't know if you don't go on that journey.
But it's lovely that mezcal always finds us.
That's what they say, you know. You don't find mezcal finds you.
That's right. What initially took you out to LA? Because you were living in New York for a bit, right?
Yeah, I had a consulting company, and I was helping companies in the U.S. do business in Mexico, and companies in Mexico do business in the U.S. So one of my clients wanted me to help them establish a presence in LA.
Yeah.
So I had just met my now wife. We were dating then, and I just said, "Why don't you let's go out there for a while, see what happens?" And she, being the trooper that she is, said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we went out there, and when that gig kind of ran its course, I started getting involved in other things, including real estate and investing in these projects that led me to get involved in these bars. And my mom is from LA, actually.
Oh, she really?
Yeah.
Was she born in LA?
She wasn't born in LA. She moved to Mexico. I would say I'm a child of reverse immigration. She was born in LA. She moved to Mexico, met my dad there, lived there. It took her 30 or 40 years to get her Mexican citizenship.
No kidding.
I was raised in Mexico, and then I went back to where she's from, which is LA. So it's like the exact opposite of...
Again, like it's crazy. It is backwards, but...
So I've always spent time there. So I always loved LA. So when I went back there and started getting involved in other stuff, we just made it home. All of a sudden, you're always looking for home. You're like, wait a minute, I am home.
So did it finally feel like you found home?
I love LA. Yeah. I love LA. Going back to just my obsession for creativity and creative drive, and it's just a city that just has so much creative energy in its DNA.
And you can feel it.
Everywhere. I mean, that's why this city is, LA is such an amazing city right now for craft cocktail movement and everything that's happening in this industry, because you just suddenly, there's people are so creative there, then suddenly they find, a path towards booze or food or film or
Yeah.
technology, and it suddenly just goes off, and it's just a wonderful time to be there, because it's just all this is still happening.
Did you ever pursue those kind of creative outlets? I imagine you've probably dabbled in a lot of different things. Were you ever a filmmaker? Were you ever
No,
a
in
songwriter?
technology, I always dabbled in some film projects
Yeah.
and media projects. It's more for the passion of it, just
Yeah.
more because I just love, again, just putting content together. Technology, yes, I was involved in that, and always looking for just a way to just create. Again, see ideas happen.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah.
And this was one of it. I mean, when I see that, I see Silencio right now, and I'm just so proud of the fact that it really just was an idea. It was Vicente, my business partner, and I just sitting down one day talking about it. And when I kind of rewind to that moment and remember the conversation, like so many others that we have on a daily basis about how cool would it be to do this, how cool would it be to do that, and then just only flash forward and see it happen. It's just a wonderful journey.
Yeah. And I love, so it's cool because the brand is deeply rooted in LA.
Yes.
You're from LA.
Yes.
Your mom's, I mean,
Yes.
it runs very deep, even to the point of naming El Silencio after a David Lynch
Well, that was
location.
interesting, because the original the reason why it's really called Silencio is because when we were putting together the first batch, the Joven, this white bottle, like a clear bottle. Pedro, our distiller, said something beautiful, and it was not just what he said, but how he said it and where he said it, because we're just, in the highlands overlooking the fields, and he said, always remember that it's the I was about to take a sip. He said, always remember it's the second sip of mezcal that does the trick. The first sip, you just leave it in your mouth for about 10 seconds, and then you open the taste buds. But it is during the second sip when the flavors explode.
Yeah.
So when you have that second sip of mezcal, there should be nothing around you but the flavors of mezcal and absolute silence.
Silence.
So you can get lost in those flavors. And it was like, wow. I mean, wow.
The Simon and Garfunkel
Wow.
moment,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, wait, I mean, that we got to name it Silencio, especially when he said it. Pues, tenías que say, no tiene que haber nada más que los sabores de mezcal y absoluto silencio para, and it was just beautiful. So we named it Silencio. And then during the first, when we first put the product out there, which is really more of a labor of love out of a charity event that we put together.
The Chase Foundation, right?
Chase Foundation, yes. And there was a gentleman there from Hollywood Reporter, and he was talking to Vicente, my business partner, who is an absolute diehard David Lynch fan.
Amazing.
So he made a reference to it. He said, it was only meant to be that we named it Silencio and gave birth to it in LA when you have such an iconic, the most iconic LA film is Mulholland Drive.
It's amazing.
Go figure that, the bar is called Club Silencio.
So it was more serendipitous than anything
Yeah,
else.
completely. But when he mentioned that, he ran with it and did huge mentions. For a while there, people were making that reference. So we just found it really cool that it was just all, it was really kind of an organic, David Lynch was more of an organic thing that happened.
There's a David Lynch in all of us, man. The darkness, that creative impetus.
Absolutely.
All of that.
Absolutely.
Well, so you guys, are we talking three years later since launch?
3.5 years.
3.5 years, right? And you've kind of shifted out. You're working with a lot of different distributors throughout the United States. You talk about Brandon, too, who's killing it here in the Texas market. Have you seen mezcal, the market, the industry itself change, that people have become warmer to the category?
I think I have absolute question about it. I mean, it's a beautiful spirit, and there's so much soul in the spirit. There's so much magic in the spirit that it is just, we always knew it was a matter of time before people were discovering it. And we're big supporters of the category itself. I mean, we obviously are, our Silencio, our baby, but we're big supporters of the category because it's just a wonderful spirit. And as people start discovering it, I think it's irresistible.
Yeah.
It is
irresistible. That's a perfect word for it.
There's no element in mezcal that's not, just so incredible and alluring that it's not going to be, grab whoever tastes it and make them a follower and a fan of it.
They fall in love upon first sip.
And we've seen it obviously grow by the growth of our own brand and by the growth of the category and the recognition and the conversation around it. And it's just wonderful to see that happen, because a lot of times we're part of the process and we see how people take to it, and it's incredible.
Yeah. It is like watching someone fall in love in a way.
It is a complete love story.
Yeah.
Complete love story.
Because it takes us someplace. It's one of the few spirits that does that.
Absolutely.
It takes us to a place that
and
smells
it's a conversation, and it's a story in
it's
itself.
A
We like
narrative,
saying
right.
that we don't bottle mezcal, we bottle stories.
Yeah.
And it is a story, and it is mischievous, and it is adventurous, and it is, dangerous, and intriguing, and it has all of that packed in together. I mean, how wonderful is that to be able to be a part of that and be able to open that bottle and pour all of this to somebody who suddenly takes a sip, and you see them, just their eyes light up, and the conversation starts, and then you have another soul in the bottle, and it's wonderful.
That's right. I mean, you've activated them in a way. You know what I mean? It's like those things in all of us that we want. Again, they're around us our whole lives, but it takes just that one thing.
Absolutely.
To bring it out, and perhaps mezcal is that thing.
I
for
think
some
so.
of us.
That is why it finds you.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So you chose to do two different SKUs or two different marks coming out of the gates. You have the nice kind of ominous black mark, and then you have the crystal clear bottle. And as you told me, one of them is mixing and one of them's sipping. But mixing, tell me a little bit about the philosophy.
we blended the clear bottle, the Hoven, really to be a sipping spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful blend of 3 agaves.
And you don't disclose those, right?
No, we do.
It's on there, okay.
We do. It's a blend of Espadín, Tobaciche, and Mexicano.
Oh, killer. Okay.
And actually the next batch of labels, we'll have them on there. We just wanted to put it out there because we just didn't want to have, we wanted people to just fall in love with the spirit, and we just didn't want to put too much information on them that might create confusion.
That makes sense.
And what we wanted to do was really create something which was what we call your love at first taste mezcal.
Yeah.
The mezcal that makes you fall in love with mezcal, because it's so easy to drink. It's so exquisite. It's so smooth and approachable that it was really more of your single malt experience. You're neat or on the rocks, and you just sit back and whether just talk all night or pull out a set of backgammon and let the afternoon roll, it's that spirit. It's that, the true pleasure of sipping on a spirit neat. And also it blends beautifully. That's why we say it's a sipping mezcal that mixes beautifully, because it is just so user-friendly for cocktails. And then we launched the Espadín, which is a black bottle, and we really blended that with cocktails in mind, because mezcal is, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's the most extraordinary mixing spirit out there, because there's so many layers of flavor to it. There's so much soul to it.
Oh yeah, you
there's
talk
so
about
many
those
components
3.
about it, and it's just wonderful, because it just elevates a cocktail. It just takes the cocktail to a whole different realm. So we really blended that for cocktails. So that's why we call it a mixing mezcal that sips beautifully.
So you can appeal to someone in a very, very nude form, in a way, right? And then also use modifiers, using accessories, and it also really helps those be a team player. So it's kind of nice, because you have your star point guard and then a power forward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Really good way to line those up.
Yeah.
When you talk about the 3, the blend of the 3, the Espadín, the Tobaciche, and then the Mexicano, for you, when you think about what you prefer in the flavors of mezcal, are you a dark guy? Are you a light guy? Do you like fruity? Do you like musky?
I think there's 3 things that make mezcal be mezcal. One is the flavors of the agave, the balance of smoke, and the proof. You balance those 3 and you have an extraordinary mezcal. So what I'm a huge fan of is a properly balanced mezcal. Yeah. Because it's not easy. It's not an easy spirit to balance, and it's so instinctive to the master distiller. It's not a formula. It's not an industrial process. Not a machine doing it. A lot of it is really just the eye and the senses of the distiller,
like a director,
and bringing all the senses together. Exactly, like
Yeah.
a musician, like a chef, like
Yeah.
a director, like a painter. So what I love the most is I'm a big fan of all mezcals. More technical, bigger. But what I love is when I find that balance, because if one of those 3 things that I mentioned overbears the other, then it's not a properly balanced mezcal.
Yeah. It's about balance.
Yeah.
That's a very Spielbergian thing.
I'm flattered.
Yeah. People, they have to be able to connect with it, and they can't be pushed away. That's why David Lynch is polarizing, right? It's like those bigger mezcals, to use your verbiage there.
But it's like, I mean, if you want to use a film reference, it's not about whether it's a comedy or whether it's a drama or whether it's a thriller or it's a documentary. I just categorize movies in two buckets. One, they either grab you and take you for a ride, or they don't.
They do not.
So my wife makes fun of me because she says that if I'm awake after the first 50 minutes of the movie, then it's a great movie. But if it loses me,
done.
It's done.
It's very like all of your reviews could be done with a simple picture that your wife takes. He's asleep, thumbs down. Easily a terrible movie. Well, I know you get some great things still left to do here in Texas, and I've got a couple questions left for you. One of which, I'm always curious because, man, I don't know how you'll answer this because you're very creative, but you're methodical. Like, I get this, right? It's left and right brain. So let's say you're sipping your favorite mezcal in the world at any mezcaleria or even at a restaurant, and you could sit there and have a conversation with anybody, living or deceased. Who would you love to just sit there and sip mezcal with and talk?
God, how much would I love to just, down a couple of mezcals over a great conversation with Willie Allen. I mean,
he is that'd be amazing.
I am one of his biggest fans, not the biggest one, but God, how much I would love to have the conversation.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
How much I would love to have the conversation.
No one's ever said that, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
I would love that, especially I can just, if having his mind just unleash over a glass of mezcal and be able to be there for that would be... God, the ultimate journey,
man.
The ultimate journey,
it'd be a fucking trip is what it would
crazy.
be.
I mean, I was just, a couple of weeks ago, I finished reading Phil Knight's new book, Shoe Dog, and it's just an incredible book. Whoever's listening, and I urge you, if you have any entrepreneurial bugs inside of you, pick up that book because it is just one of the most incredible memoirs on being an entrepreneur. And the adventure and the ride that being an entrepreneur is, because it is a ride that you're holding on for dear life throughout it all. And his the way that it's just a beautiful written book. And I remember when I put it down, I thought about the question you just asked me. I said, God, I just feel like jumping on a flight to Oregon and just sitting down with this amazing gentleman and just chatting out, the ride that we share, that I'm still in the early stages of, and that he is that he went through, and having that talk over a bottle of mezcal. So that's another thing that came to mind.
Sounds pretty amazing. So my last question for you, and it's a perfect segue. The entrepreneur never sleeps, not literally, but their mind's
literally.
But their mind's always moving. They always want to keep creating. You've managed to do well in your own businesses. You did consulting. You've launched 2 beautiful expressions of mezcal. But there's no way that's it for you. Do you have a clear idea of what you would like to do next?
Well, it starts with taking Silencio to the moon. I love this brand. It is my 3rd child. I love it. I love the brand. I love what's in it. I love what's out of it. I like saying that we sell 2 things. We sell the juice and we sell the brand of Silencio. I love my Silencio family. If there is one thing that I am just most proud of, is just the family that has come together. I mean, Brandon and Tyron and Marcos and Natalia and Victor, and I mean, it's just an incredible family that's come together. So there is a lot to do and a lot more left on this journey. And that's what excites me the most.
Well, this is the beauty of sitting. I think even if it's overcast in Austin, this has still been a lovely afternoon to sip mezcal and hear car alarms go off. Fausto, it's really been a pleasure, man. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip here, and I'd love to keep in touch.
Oh, I love Austin, and it's impossible not to enjoy any time being here. So thank you so much for inviting me to be
Absolute pleasure.
Have this conversation.
Well, there we have it. Fausto Zapata, the CEO and founder of El Silencio Mezcal. This is the story. This is the growth. This is the plan for the brand. It's a great conversation. We recorded this some time ago, but actually even more pertinent and relevant now about a year and so later, as El Silencio, as I said, is rocketing up the charts. It is in every well. It is in every back bar. This isn't as much an advertisement for El Silencio as it is to see, this is the power of mezcal, and this is when people have plans and people have a business-minded strategy, things can happen. So critique it as you will and talk about production methods. Fausto talks about some of the blending here and the varietals contained therein, these certain bottles of El Silencio, and it's a great chat, a great guy. Brandon Turner, thank you again for setting this opportunity up. And thank you for listening to Show to V with Mike G. There are only a few days left in October, so keep watching those horror movies despite how it fatigues you. And yes, last night I saw the new Halloween sequel. Very, very good, perhaps even a bit underwhelming, but please keep watching horror movies through the end of this month, and please keep listening.